Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morganroth. I'm Motor City Madmouth, and we are joined today by Mr. Curti. Rick Curti's become a staple on this broadcast. What's going on, Mr. Curti?
Hey, guys. How are you?
We're doing all right, and a newcomer or a rookie to 108 Stitches Baseball Talk is Les Wolff. What's going on, Les?
Hey, Scott, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Always love having you, Les. You bring a lot of interesting stuff to the table, and we're going to definitely have a lot of fun tonight with the both of you guys. So, obviously, the focal point of what we're going to talk about is baseball, since this is a baseball show. So, why don't we go to some of the main things, and then Rick Curti wants to talk about some of these steroid guides, and we'll cap it off at the end. How's that sound, all right?
Sounds good. Sounds like a plan. Put me in, Coach. I'm ready to play.
There we go. That's what I like to hear from my players. All right. With that said, okay, Les, you said that the card memorabilia market is being driven up by no sports, so you have a bunch of hungry people out there. I like the way you stereotype it, like for a sports cage. Why don't you go ahead and give us some definition to what that's all about?
Well, recently, a Mike Trout card, a refractor card, 1 of 5, sold for an unbelievable amount of money. I mean, Rick, do you have any idea what this autograph card, 1 of 5, PSA 10, what card is like that? What would you think it would be worth, Rick?
Like,
take a guess, then I'll tell you.
$5,000.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Scott and I will give you $500,000 for that card, okay? It went for $1.1 million.
Oh, man.
922 plus the 20% buyer's premium. Now, I've been doing this memorabilia for over 60 years now. I've never seen a new card go for that kind of money. I always tell people collect the vintage, the older stuff, the Honus Wagner T206, cards like that, because it's always going to go up and get scarcer. But because people are so hungry for sports, especially baseball, people have gotten together and made groups together to start buying up this stuff. And that's it. That's what that went for. And there's another one recently going up. There's a basketball card that's up there also, LeBron James. But the baseball card is just gone crazy. The new stuff, and I always say in my lecture, a Hall of Famer is somebody that's established, that's already got the stats. Now, Mike Trout is a great ball player. Do not get me wrong. I think he's the best player in sports, right, in baseball. But God forbid, but realistically, if he doesn't get that 10 years in, he's not making the Hall of Fame. And then that $1 million card becomes not $1 million anymore. It goes way down. Now, if he does make the Hall of Fame, yes, the card will go up, but I don't know how much more. But it's just a crazy, crazy market. And from what I understand, the guy that sold that card bought it for $200,000 just a couple of years ago. So that's a pretty nice return on investment, wouldn't you say, Rick?
Not bad. Not bad.
So, Les, you talk about the fact, and this is really interesting, how the card memorabilia market is being up by no sports. Why would you say that because of no sports? Is it that people are just restless and they're looking to buy them? That's pretty interesting.
Well, think of it this way. Okay, all your life, all my life, all Rick's life, we've managed to be able to watch sports, especially baseball. Baseball is the national pastime, right? Mm-hmm. So either we go out and we play sports, or we watch it on TV. We can't wait till it's 1 o'clock on a Sunday to watch a doubleheader, or 7 o'clock during the week to watch a night game, or opening day. You can't wait for that because the anticipation of a season that you could possibly win a pennant. Now here we have players that can't wait to get back on that field, and then we have people that were forced to be in our houses. We're like a caged animal, and we can't get out. And all you're going to do is be on the computer. And people are starting to really buy a lot of stuff up on the computer because they want to be connected to the sport. I mean, when you're buying a player that you're watching all the time, that connects you to that sport. It makes you a fan of that player and a fan of that team. Because I know growing up, I was a huge Yankee fan. I idolized Mickey Mantle. I met him. I met all my idols. I'm one of the few people that can say that, and I've befriended them all. But I got to tell you, Mike Trout I've met also when he was a rookie in Anaheim. He's a great player, nice guy, but $1 million card? No, I don't think so. What do you think, Scott? What do you think, Rick?
I think it's a little bit too much for right now because he's not, he's a great ball player. Is he going to go to the Hall of Fame if he keeps doing what he's doing? Absolutely. He could be one of the greatest, but what if he blows a knee out? What if he, gets injured, or he doesn't eat, or, he could be like Don Mattingly. Don Mattingly's going to be a superstar, and unfortunately back injuries hurt him, and
You're absolutely right. You had to mention Mattingly.
Yeah, so I just think of Don Mattingly, because I'm like, Don Mattingly would have been one of the greatest, but, his back injuries, and it hurt his career. He wasn't the same, and I hate to see that happen to any player, or even Mike Trout, so you don't know yet. So,
well,
absolutely right.
You want to know an irony about the fact that you've talked about Mickey Mantle and Don Mattingly. I actually have a Hydra Stone statue. In fact, I got two of them from Mantle and one from Mattingly when I was up in Cooperstown, New York, and I have them at home, and I think they're really neat. I don't think I would ever part with them anyhow. But, anytime you have Yankee memorabilia, I would always think it's worth a lot more money because of the history of that franchise. So it's amazing how you bring both those two guys up. So let me ask you this, okay, Les. When you talk about sports memorabilia, we know, to me, it almost reminds me of the stock market a little bit. If it's high and you can sell it, you do it. Otherwise, it only figures to devalue itself as time goes on, injuries aside. So would you think that sports memorabilia would probably remind you a little bit of the stock market because of the fluctuation?
Actually, it's funny that you say that. In the late 80s, all I was buying is Ruth and Gehrig baseballs, high-end stuff, and just flipping them, because the market was down and people wanted to diversify their investments, and they were buying up that stuff. And I'm the first person, and Rick, you probably don't know this, in mid-1985, I'm the first person that started these sports auctions. I had a company called Sports Auctions of New York. That was my brainchild. So I've watched the market go from nothing, from me, starting it there and everybody else copying me, to what it is now, which is just insane. Mm-hmm. If anybody would ever told me that a new card of a rookie of a Mike Trout would go for $1.1 million, I would say you're out of your mind. But, things change, life changes, and people want to diversify their investments. And I've built some of the best collections in the world in all different sports, but the main emphasis has always been on baseball. Baseball is number one. It's a national pastime. It's where everybody loves it.
Well, I have Hydra Stone headshots, also Ty Cobb, Lou Gehrig, and Babe Ruth, and Joe DiMaggio, just to name a few. I don't want to. And I tell you what, I love having those things. So to me, again, you're right, Les. No debating that baseball. Certainly, if you're going to be a collector, I think it's definitely a sport to do it. So, with that said, let's go on to an interesting thing you talked about original photos are more collectible by people. And you talk about an Uncle Jimmy collection where you have 6 autographed Babe Ruth cards, and one sold for $153,000, and there's 5 left of those Ruth cards. Why don't you go into this in more detail with Rick, Curti, and myself?
Okay, basically, every collector, every dealer, every auction house, the dream is to find that one collection that'll show you that something came up that no one ever knew about. This Uncle Jimmy was 94 years old when he passed away. He was a janitor, never got married. All he did was collect, send letters to all the athletes, self-addressed stamped envelope, write a nice letter about them, and send the cards. Well, he encompassed one of the greatest collections I've ever heard, period, of signed cards. You have autographed Babe Ruth cards on there. And the first one just sold for $153,000. Now, the person that spent $1 million on that Mike Trout, I would have told him, hold that $1 million and buy up all these Babe Ruth cards. Mm-hmm. Babe Ruth, Colton Swat, he is baseball. He made the Yankees who they are, and he's the person to collect anything. If you want to collect the memorabilia, you want to collect Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Ty Cobb. You want to collect Hannes Wagner. You want to collect the icons. You don't want to collect. Unfortunately, you don't want to collect the average player. I mean, I love some of the average players, but they're not as good an investment. Teach a class how to collect, invest, preserve. And today, interesting enough, Scott, we were talking a little about Hannes Wagner, the T206, one of the rarest cards in the world.
Right.
Well, what do you know? I have a few people on my lecture today. Guy had a Hannes Wagner T206, graded 1.
No
that he turned down a couple of years ago, over $500,000 for it.
Wow.
And I told him, let me know when you want to sell it. I'd love to help you with that.
So I had a replica
that's just an example that you never know who you're going to be talking to and what they have. Plus, in addition to that, he had rings, baseball, football, championship rings. I mean, you know, there's a lot of savvy collectors out there that know what they're collecting, know what they're doing. And those are the collectors I like to meet, and I like to help them to collect, invest, protect, and preserve it. And it's not just sports, it's anything, but mainly baseball is number one by far as collectability.
All right, let's go into some of the details about that Hannes Wagner T206 card. You were telling me that there was a limited holy grail of baseball. There were only 50 to 200 of them that were distributed, and that they didn't want to endorse cards for people to buy cigarettes, which I don't blame them. And you say, and it was designed by the American Tobacco Company. And again, we all know that everything is worth what the condition is, whether it's worth millions. And that it actually started in 1933 worth $50. And you'll imagine what that $50 is several years later. So why don't you go into more details, Les, about the story about the American Tobacco Company?
Well, they're the ones that made it. They printed the cards with the idea to help to sell cigarettes, and Hannes refused didn't want to allow the production of the cards because he didn't want to have children to buy. He didn't want kids buying cigarettes. Which I got to tell him, Hannes Wagner, rest in peace. He was absolutely right. He didn't want to receive any compensation from American Tobacco, and he forced them. Imagine a baseball player forcing a tobacco company, from printing more of them. Well, they only printed between 50 and 200 of those cards, and who knows how many have exact. We don't know the exact number of cards that have survived that, but it's the holy grail. It's like if you ever saw Willy Wonka getting that golden ticket. That's the golden ticket, and it's in tens of thousands of dollars. There's also the story. I don't know if you're familiar with Wayne Gretzky and Bruce McNall. They bought that card. Pardon me?
I remember they bought that card.
They bought that card, and because they bought that card, it added an extra aura to it. And people decided, wow, they bought the card, and they bought it for I believe it was about $500,000 many years. I think it was 89 or 90. I don't remember the exact year that they bought the card, but P.S. That card. It's because Gretzky and McNall, who was the owner of the LA Kings, they bought it. That gave it more value and more publicity. But that card didn't need the publicity because it's the holy grail of collecting. I'm sure you know Martin Sheen. Charlie Sheen was a huge collector of this stuff. I mean, a lot of celebrities, a lot of average shows like you and me collect this stuff. But I just saw one in my lecture today. Just to see one in the lecture, even though it was a Zoom lecture, is just amazing. I mean, it's like I won the lottery just to see it. Oh, sorry, I've been doing it since '69. I saw it in the '70s. It was like $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, blah blah blah. Now you see that card; it's a $2 million card, but it depends on condition. The key thing in cards and sports memorabilia and antiques, as real estate, it's location, location, location. In memorabilia, it's condition, 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 or none. I want that.
Very good. So now you folks know about Hannes Wagner T206 card. So Rick, go ahead and ask us about some of these steroid guys that we were talking about.
Yeah, I had a whole bunch of Barry Bonds cards when he weighed like 125 pounds and before his head got real big, literally. I had a Mark McGwire rookie card. I had a Sammy Sosa card when he weighed 110 pounds and he was with the White Sox. Are these cards worth anything, or are they just useless because they were on the juice?
Well, they're starting to come back, actually. It's interesting. I was hired by ESPN in 05-06 to do the memorabilia tour, telling people what memorabilia was worth. And I was in San Diego, and there was a guy came by and interviewed me from the San Diego paper there. And we just started talking. I asked him about Barry. He told me a story about Barry Bonds. It's very interesting. When he was in the minor league, up to the one-arm bandit, the pitching machine, he'd go in front of home plate and hit that for hours in the minor leagues. So he was a freak in the minor leagues. I remember his dad was Bobby Bonds, terrific base steal, terrific hitter. an amazing player. May he rest in peace. So Barry's was a Hall of Famer before any of the steroids happened. When McGuire and Sosa started with the steroids, I believe, and this is only my belief, I believe that he got jealous and just pumped up a little. But you know what? It doesn't matter. He was a Hall of Famer before it, and he's a Hall of Famer. He'll be a Hall of Famer in the future. I don't think that you should be worried about that. And now it's worth much now, but I think it will go up because I think he will make the Hall of Fame. Him, Roger Clemens, Sosa, Mark McGuire. I think they're all going to stand a good shot to make the Hall of Fame, especially since I don't want to mention any names that's in the Hall of Fame. There are a couple of guys in there that have on steroids. Then you also know the one guy, the head of steroids, Bud Selig. He was a commissioner.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
He's in the Hall of Fame as a commissioner. I mean, come on, he's letting the players in also. So don't forget, years ago when Mickey Mantle and Babe Ruth and all these great players, wasn't alcohol illegal back in the days when, Scott? Rick, wasn't it illegal back then?
Oh yeah.
Yes, it was, and they were drinking it, and so they're doing steroids, they're doing all this stuff. It's illegal then, but I got news for you. In 10, 20 years from now, maybe longer, probably be a cure. One of those will be the cure for the COVID. Who knows?
Well, let me just tell you this, Les, because I know how the Baseball Writers Association of America works, and that got Bonds and a few of these guys are actually running out of time to get in there. And I know that from I've got a lot of writers that I know that are part of it, and if they don't vote them in, okay, because they said that they're not going to vote steroids guys in. They're running out of time on the ballot, so they got to get in pretty soon, and I mean real soon, whether Clemens or Bonds and all that. Maybe they'll get in on the 10th ballot, depending on what the next wave of voting is. But, because I can guarantee you one thing, Rick, if they don't get on the writer's ballot, you can rest assured that any of the other subcommittees that are involved aren't going to put them in. There's no way that they want cheaters in the Hall of Fame. And Rick Curti's definitely been adamantly outspoken about what his feelings are about cheaters in the game of baseball, right, Rick?
To me, Hank Aaron's the home run leader.
Right.
He's still the home run leader.
I agree. Yeah, I don't recognize Barry Bonds as the all-time home run.
I would agree with you there.
And Roger Maris still holds a single season record for most home runs.
Yeah, and I know, and I'll take it a step further with Maris. There should be no asterisk next to it either. Why?
Yeah, because he did it in the season. It wasn't his fault. They extended the season. He said the season, not less games, but it wasn't his fault. They put more games in there. So I mean, he hit most home runs in a season, and that's how it should be.
Well, if you're going to have an asterisk next to Maris, you might as well do it with the other ones that followed because they all belong. I think the asterisk should be moved on Roger Maris, but that's just my opinion. Should have been moved. I
don't disagree with you.
Yeah, I mean,
and you know what? Roger Clemens had 242 votes for the Hall of Fame. So, and he had said 61% of the votes.
All right.
All he needed is he's getting up there. He's going to get in. Mark my words.
Well, I'm not marking anybody's words, so I know how the voting works. But if he is going up, then if he does, he makes it in on the last attempt, unless he gets a real big spike, depending on what the actual question is.
You know what? It doesn't matter when you get in, as long as you get in.
Well, I know that. Ask Bert Blylev, and he'll tell you that when they had 15 years of eligibility, he was on the back end. Andre Dawson, same thing, got in on the very back end, so I'm well aware. But again, the only difference between those guys is they had an extra 5 years of eligibility until they turned it from 15 to 10. But the other thing about them is they weren't cheaters, and trying to convince writers with cheaters is another different animal. I mean, this will be a good discussion for us down the road, but that's just some food for thought about who should get in, because again, there's that domino effect, Les, that if, like anything else, if they get in, then a lot of the memorabilia is worth a lot more money because of that cause and effect. So I'm with you.
I met Ron Santo we went to California. The Cubs were playing the Dodgers, and I saw him in the hotel. I was talking to him. I said, you know what? I don't understand this. I know you're a Hall of Famer. You should be getting in while you're alive, not when you pass away.
Right.
And he with me, and it's absolutely horrible that guys like that, who spend their career in baseball and that phenomenal career, some of them may not.
Well, we can get into a Hall of Fame debate all along, and the one guy that'll come to mind will be Fred McGriff. Why he's not in there is beyond my wildest of imagination.
Yeah, that's a disgrace. That he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, but again, we're not getting into a Hall of Fame discussion, but it's good to be able to make reference of them only because of the fact that if you have memorabilia pertaining to these particular individuals, then yeah, that's where the price tag comes into play, which is why we're talking about it on a very scaled back level.
Absolutely. Plus, you know what? And the best part of it for an athlete that's been, people haven't heard from years, like a cool Papa Bell when he got in from the Negro Leagues, a wonderful young man. May rest in peace. Now all of a sudden, people want to meet him. They want to talk to him. Want to do stories about him, and it gives them money. That's the main thing. A lot of players do not retire. When they retire and they're out of sports, they don't make as much money as they did when they played.
Well, I mean, think about the fact that you go to spring training in Arizona and Florida, especially Arizona. Yeah, you have all these former players selling their memorabilia at every Cactus League park. I mean, I've bumped across Fergie Jenkins. Actually, he's agreed to come on the broadcast. I haven't talked to him in a few months, but I'm hoping to get Fergie on.
He's a wonderful. I've met him numerous times. Very nice.
Yeah, he is. I've got his phone number. But, if you go to the Cactus League, you'll find a lot of former players signing cards and getting money for it. So,
you know what? It's very sad to see that some of these guys that the only revenue that they're making is from signing their name. I mean, Mickey Mantle made more money from signing his name than when he played.
Yeah, but again, he was ahead of his time. But I see your point for sure. I definitely see your point. Rick, continue on and ask Les some questions.
Yeah, speaking of Mickey Mantle, isn't his rookie card the most valuable? Is it still the most valuable card out there?
Yes, but it's got to be gem mint condition. That's the whole. Like I said before, the whole thing is condition. Yes, it is one of the most valuable cards. But the Hannes Wagner is, in my book, is the holy grail, and it's not just my book; it's somebody's book.
I had a replica of that card, and I remember having it, and I thought, this is a cool little card they had. And then I read the story about why it was so valuable, because he didn't want nothing to do with tobacco or alcohol. And they said, okay, and they just got rid, and they got rid of it. So it was an amazing story about the Flying Dutchman, Hannes Wagner. So it'll be amazing.
Yeah, but it's really that no one really, I've never seen anybody do the life story of Hannes Wagner. I've seen books written about him, but never just depicting the true story about him.
One of the original members of the Hall of Fame, 8-time batting champion, stole a lot of bases, and this guy was like 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, played shortstop, and not only was he a great player, but he was a terrific human being. And when him and Ty Cobb were in the World Series together, it was like good versus evil. And people they were rooting for Hannes Wagner because Ty Cobb was such a despicable, disgusting individual, and they actually said that Hannes Wagner was the best baseball player when they won the 1909 World Series. So it's an amazing story about him.
Yeah, but yet you say that Ty Cobb's the first guy that actually got elected into the Hall of Fame.
He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of Very Nice People; it's the Hall of Fame.
That's true, because
that's right. And don't forget who was in that inaugural class also.
Babe Ruth.
George Herman, Babe Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
But Cobb, I think, had more votes, so it's Detroit over New York, although we were way behind in the World Series championship.
Ty Cobb was the greatest baseball player that ever lived. But yeah, he was a despicable human being, but like I said, it's not the Hall of Very Nice People.
Yeah, right. No, I hear you. I mean, I know. But
how many titles do you guys have in Detroit as opposed to my Yankees? I can't hear you guys.
Yeah. Maybe you need some hearing aids there, man. I'm not worried about the titles that the Yankees have over the Tigers, because if I recall correctly, the Detroit Red Wings have a lot more championships over the New York Rangers. The Pistons have more.
You got me there. I don't know if I'll see another one. It took till '94. And it's already been 26 years. I don't think it's going to happen for a while, but you never know. The best thing about sports is you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a short coming up. You never know what can happen. But the record for the Hannes Wagner T206 card was in 2018. It sold for $3.12 million.
Man. That's amazing.
Can you do me a favor, Rick and Scott? Can you go look in your attic and check around the neighborhood? Maybe you can find that in the attic somewhere.
Problem in Florida is I don't have an attic.
The attics.
I remember having a replica card of it, and I thought it's kind of cool. It's like a square card, and they said, "Oh yeah, that's an old card." And then when I saw Wayne Gretzky and Bruce McNall buy it, and I was like, "Hey, I got that card." And they're like, "Yeah, but yours is not real. This is real."
Well, baseball
There's
cards.
There's a slight difference in the value there.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
The baseball cards are a depressing subject for everybody because everybody knows that their mothers threw them away. Otherwise, how much money we'd have in our pocket. But that's
you know what, Scott? That's the most often told story.
Yeah.
But you know what? We can thank our mothers. May my mom rest in peace. We can thank our mothers because if they hadn't thrown them away, there wouldn't be so much of a business. Wouldn't be such a scarcity.
Well, sorry, I'm not giving any sympathy how much money I lost because of that.
Hey, I'm just mentioning it. That's all.
I'm sure you probably are. So okay with that, I'm sure you are. All right. With that said, we have another 5-7 more minutes in the broadcast. So why don't we talk about the 2020 season? And go ahead, Les. You talked about home runs, wins, Cy Young, and all that business. So go ahead and ask Rick a few of these questions about what you think.
Okay, Rick. We're playing 60 games, right? Let's figure 30 home, 30 road.
Uh-huh.
Okay? What do you think? How many home runs is going to be needed to be hit to win the home run title? How many wins do you think is going to be needed to win the Cy Young title? And what batting average do you think is going to be needed to win the batting title?
I will say 25 home runs. I would say 15 wins. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
15 wins and a batting title. Batting average are so, I would say like 326, something like that.
15 wins in a 60-game season?
I don't know about that one. 25 home runs it's possible, but you got to remember, it's like spring training for these guys. It's going to take a while for them to get warmed up.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't go that far, Les, because I got news for you. I talk to your buddy Don Mattingly every day. And right now, these guys came in to summer camp really in shape. So, I could see maybe where the 25 home runs might be coming into play, depending on where they're at. If you're in Coors Field, you can add another 5 and make it 30. But
Lydia, what about if you play in Camden Yards or Fenway?
Well, all right. What about that short porch at Yankee Stadium? But that's.
Well, I'm not in lead. I mean, Judge's Corner. Judge's Corner.
Yeah, I know. That's where I was going with it. Okay. But all right. So here, let's keep it real. You think 25 home runs? That's possible. We'll see. Wins by a pitcher? I don't think 15. I think maybe if you're lucky, 8 or 10.
I would say at least 10, 12 in that area.
Right. Okay. And then batting average? Well, what do we got? I'm not going to say there's a 400 hitter coming out of this whole batch. I don't know, but
yeah, the batting average is dying art.
Yeah. So, but all right, go ahead, Rick. This question was intended for you.
400 home run. It bats 400. Are they going to count that as that the guy hit was a 400 hitter?
No, I
hope not.
I hope not either. So, Rick, give a prediction about the batting average.
Like 325.
What about you, Les? Was your question in the first place?
301.
Really? All right. Well, you know what? I'll say 333. It's my lucky number.
Oh, you just want to be different.
All right. Well, I got to be. I've always been different.
I'd rather be under than over.
Well, as long as it's not 400, I really don't frankly care. 333. Okay. 333. Go ahead, Les. Give me one more prediction about the average.
I'm sticking my 301.
Okay. And Rick, go ahead.
The batting average?
Yeah.
325.
All right. So we're right there. No 400 hitters. That's all we have to say. Home runs 25, 30. Wins by pitcher 10 to 12.
Wouldn't it be pretty funny if someone does hit 400?
No, it wouldn't be funny.
Wouldn't it be even funnier if someone actually wins 15 games and doesn't lose a game? These crazy things can happen because you never know, especially in baseball.
Yeah, well, I don't know. With 60 games, I'm not so sure that we're looking at that many crazy things. I personally think 7 to 10.
If the guy's the number one starter, he'll have at least 15 starts. In 60-game season, he could do it.
God, I don't know. All right, well, that's interesting.
I would say 10 is probably what's going to win it.
I think so, too.
To be honest, that would be my prediction as far as the wins.
Yeah, I could probably, I would say you're right in line with 10, that's for sure. So anything else you guys?
I wouldn't be a bit surprised if a relief pitcher would be high up there to win also.
Now that's a different animal. Now, I'm glad you brought that up. Thanks, Les. I think that a relief pitcher could probably get 20 to 25 saves in a short season.
And he could win the Cy Young.
You know what? That's not so far out of the, 20, 25 games, although Don Mattingly told me at times that depending on how a pitcher's going, that you'll start to see a lot more 2 to 3 inning relief pitching, and of course they had that new rule where that reliever has to face at least 3 hitters, but 2 to 3 innings per pitcher is not out of the picture, especially when you consider the fact that you have a universal DH, which probably could be permanent in the next 2 or 3 years. So I don't know.
I got a idiot question for you.
Go ahead.
What do you guys feel can base in an extra inning?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
To break a tie. That's what they're going to be doing. What are your thoughts on that?
Wait, say that again, please.
Okay, if a game is tied going to 9th inning and go to the extra inning, they're going to start a guy out on second base.
Right.
So it'll be no one out and a man on second.
Okay. How do I feel?
Thoughts on that? Because I know for a fact one of the team owners in Florida, from a very reliable source, his best friend I play softball with, told me that to them to do a home run derby. And I said that would have been a lot more exciting than starting a guy at second base.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's my belief. That's what I think should have been done. But starting at second base, that's what they do in the minor leagues, supposedly. That's what they're going to be doing in the major league. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, but that's only this season. They're just trying to test it out a little bit to see about the legitimacy of it. They really are. But trust me, come 2021, you won't see that rule in there. There's no way. They're only doing it to shorten the games up this year. And if you're ever looking for a year to go out there and make those particular changes, why not do it? You might as well do it in a year, which is so bizarre that you can test a lot of things out. I mean, everybody already talk about robot umpires and everything on the planet. So 2020 is already, I'm not talking about my incredible 2020 vision once upon a time that's no more. We're talking about 2020 where everything goes from a sprint to a marathon scenario. So, I don't know.
Okay, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, I personally have seen the man on second base in the minor leagues, and I think it's a joke myself. To me, a game is supposed to end when it's supposed to end. I've even asked people whether or not that a pitcher, if they should they still have a perfect game, and Don Mattingly said absolutely should. And I've even talked to Mark Littell about it, and I think he confers as well. I mean, the pitcher shouldn't be held responsible for a runner that he didn't put on there, but that's for another debate for another broadcast. So,
that would be interesting. That'd be interesting. Who would get the loss then? The guy that if the guy starts at second and someone gets a hit, so that if the hit is allowed by that pitcher, he'll get the loss, right?
Yeah.
But they actually do that in the scoring.
Well, that's our Tylenol moment of the night. Who gets a loss? Okay.
Yeah.
Tylenol moment.
That'll be for our next episode.
Absolutely. So meanwhile, we got a couple minutes left in the broadcast. Les, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me, Les Wolff, from Les Wolff Sports. Just go www.LesWolff, or you can email me at lwolff1823@AOL, or you can always call me. The old phone call. I love talking sports and talking memorabilia. 516-933-7787. But number one in your heart.
All right, Rick, you're up next. Considering it's a baseball show, it's a very easy analogy that you're all too familiar with.
Our website is www.charlottebats.com. You can contact us on our email at cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com, cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB. We're also on Facebook again at Charlotte Bats Baseball. We're on Twitter at Charlotte Bats Baseball. We're also on Instagram at Charlotte Bats, and I'm also on on LinkedIn at Rick Curti.
And Rick Curti also is a very big help here to the company, the South Florida Tribune, because he helps us with a lot of our social media as well. So, Rick, we're glad to have you on, not only as a host on a lot of our broadcasts, but also you help us in the social media area. With that said, okay, you can follow us at Tribune South. That's the @ Tribune South. Facebook, like South Florida Tribune. You'll get the updates. Instagram, South Florida Tribune gets it done. We have a YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune. I actually put some of my broadcasts on there with Motorman and Root Dog, because Rudy Reyes and I do a broadcast that we've gotten a couple shows on there, but we'll be also making sure that YouTube channel gets used for a lot of other different things. We just have to wait for COVID-19 to more or less subside so we can get out there and play it safe. Our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. Have a lot of good, meaningful content from our media distribution partners, columnists, and you can also find every broadcast that we do here on the SouthFloridaTribune.com website. You can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com as well. My LinkedIn information is Scott Morganroth. You are listening to 108 Stitches Baseball Talk here on the WSAN Network. And you can also find this broadcast wherever you get your podcasts. On behalf of Les Wolff and Rick Curti, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Badmouth. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we look forward to catching you the next time. Folks, meanwhile, please be safe, mask up, practice social distancing, and we hope you've gotten a little bit of information and insights on the memorabilia. Les, thanks again for being on. Okay, we appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much, and you can also follow me on all Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Absolutely.
LinkedIn also.
Beautiful. And Rick, any closing thoughts?
I just want to say you're like a hockey coach out there. You're like the Scotty Bowman of the airwaves, so keep it up.
Appreciate that. Well, Rick, we'll give you a few days off before you return to this broadcast on Monday night for our annual Monday night baseball broadcast, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, for which Rick Curti is a regular co-host. And you can find him on Monday night. So meanwhile, folks, once again, thanks a lot for joining us here on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. This is Scott Morganroth, hoping you have a wonderful weekend.